Hello, my name is Tabitha, and for as long as I can remember, I always wanted to have a baby girl. When I was a kid, I would dress my doll up, do her hair, and carry her around with me everywhere. I would try to be the best mother I could be. So when I became an adult and I found the love of my life, my husband Jonathan, you can only imagine how excited we were to learn that it would be a baby girl. I guess the moral of that part of the story was to be careful what you wished for. From the moment our daughter was born, Lily was Daddy's little girl. When he would hold her, she'd be the most perfect angel in the world. But for me, she would throw the world's largest hissy fit. This connection would only grow stronger as she got older. The basic dynamic of our house was your typical good cop and bad cop. And you can guess which one I was. However, I have to admit, there were still times where everything was good, and we would play, laugh, and have fun together. Then her teenage years came around, and it got to a point where I couldn't do anything right for her. It started with arguments about silly things, but later developed into some serious ones. Lily accused me of not giving her the space and freedom she needed, which wasn't true. She complained because I didn't allow her to go to wild parties and hang out with the wrong crowd. We fought every single day. It was exhausting. I wasn't sure how to teach my daughter right from wrong, and she was absolutely out of control. She was still 16 when I overheard her one day on the phone with her friend bragging about how many guys she kissed while she was drunk. I was shocked, but I decided not to confront her right away. I wanted to talk to her patiently, to make her understand what she did was wrong. Instead, she blew up in my face because I was listening to her conversation. She then got up and started grabbing her things. "I'm leaving for the night," she said. "No, you can't go. You're staying home." Lily was boiling with rage. I've never seen her this upset, but it didn't matter that much to me. I was very angry too, and at that moment, I couldn't think. I was determined to make her see the big picture. She kept yelling at me, calling me the worst mom ever. But I told her my decision was final, and it's not up for discussion. Jonathan came home that moment and heard us yelling at each other. He quickly intervened and asked us what was happening. I told him exactly what was happening. Jonathan looked at Lily and asked her calmly to stay home and not go anywhere. Surprisingly, or maybe not so, she just said yes to her beloved dad and nodded at me while leaving the room. If you think our fight ended there, think again, because we stayed mad at each other for a while, and it only got worse. One day, I came home late from work expecting my husband and daughter to be at home. However, the house was empty. They were nowhere to be found. I tried to call Lily, but she didn't answer. When I called Jonathan, he answered and said our daughter is with him at the police station. I hesitated. What police station? And said with a shaking voice, "Well, honey, it's not a big deal. I came to pick up Lily. She was trying to buy alcohol." I was shocked, to say the least. I waited till they came home. It felt like ages. When they opened the door, I was so angry. Jonathan tried to calm me down, but I yelled at him too. "You should be angry too. You can't go easy on her. You're spoiling her. This is why this happened." Lily started yelling back at me. "Don't talk to Dad like that. He did nothing wrong. It's all my fault. Don't yell at him. You're the worst." She stormed to her room immediately without even giving me the chance to respond. Jonathan then looked at me and said, "Honey, I know that she did something wrong, and I'm not okay with that at all. I told her on our way home that she was wrong, and she apologized and promised to never do it again. You did not have to yell at her. She's a teenager. We all make mistakes, and we learn from them." I knew that what Jonathan said is right, and I should have approached her differently, but I couldn't help myself. The next day, Lily kept avoiding me, and whenever I tried to start a conversation, she ignored me completely. The situation continued like that for 2 weeks. It all came to a breaking point when I was driving us home one evening. We had our typical back-and-forth argument, but I had a long day, and I just wasn't having it anymore. I blew up at her, and I started yelling about how she needed to be more responsible and respectful. I may have gone over the line with my yelling, but she was as stubborn as I was and didn't want to back down. I could see her pouting in the rearview mirror, and I hoped she could recognize my stern warning as well. Jonathan sat in the passenger seat trying to calm us down, but his usual peacekeeping wasn't working this time. She screamed how she hated me and how I just didn't understand her. I shrieked how she was ungrateful and how the things she does were unforgivable. We eventually ran out of petty insults to throw at each other and drifted into an uncomfortable silence. "Now that everyone has gotten it out of their system," Jonathan began, "how about we all—" Before he could finish his sentence, it happened. A car ran a red light, smashed into the front passenger side of our vehicle, and caused me to lose control. We spun out of control until the wheels locked up. The car flipped over and over again. It was one of the scariest moments in my life. The next thing I remember is waking up in the hospital bed with the doctor standing over me. When I realized what had happened, I immediately asked about my daughter. It brought warmth to my heart when she told me that my daughter was fine and very lucky. Some minor fractures and lacerations, but she would be fine. Sadly, that was the last bit of good news that I got that day. Not even a small breath of relief could pass my lips before she continued and told me that my husband wasn't so lucky. They tried everything they could, but he didn't make it. My sight was blurry and the room began to spin, so I closed my eyes tight. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I silently prayed that this was all just a bad dream. I cried myself to sleep, remembering his face. Time passed, and I didn't know what to do anymore. It seemed like my whole life was turned upside down in an instant, and I didn't know how to adjust to the new world that I was seeing. With each passing day, I tried my best to console my daughter in her time of need. I was never the best at dealing with her, but I knew that as hard as the loss was hitting me, it was hitting her just the same. So, day by day, I would do everything that I could to make her feel better. But by night, I would cry myself to sleep alone in what used to be our bed. A couple of months after the accident, I was on my way home from work after a late shift. I made it all the way into the driveway, but couldn't find the strength to open the door and get out of the car. So I sat there, not knowing why, until the tears started to flow from my eyes. It got so bad that I didn't even realize someone was there until I heard my daughter knock on the window. I looked up to see tears flowing from her eyes as well, and immediately opened the door. "I'm sorry," I said, trying my best to wipe away the tears. "I didn't mean to worry you, and I know how much you miss your father as well." She bent down and hugged me tightly. "I miss Dad a lot, but that's not why I'm crying." I was confused. "Well, what's wrong, sweetie?" I patted her softly on the back as she spoke through sobs. "When I saw you out here crying in the car, trying to hide your pain, I started to hurt too. I don't want you to have to hide it from me. I want to be able to be there for you like you've been there for me." I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. I wept on her shoulder, and she cried on mine. From that point on, we decided to be each other's rock to stand on. In the end, my daughter and I still have our ups and downs. However, we both know that our petty arguments are not something that should dictate who we are to each other. We're family, and we will always be there for each other no matter what. I love my daughter with all of my heart, and I tell her this every time I get the chance.